It was just past midnight when Ethan gripped the steering wheel tighter, his old pickup rattling down a rain-slicked country road. His 5-year-old son, Max, snored softly in the back seat, bundled in a blanket. They were coming home from a late shift and a sitter cancellation. Life was like that lately. Since his wife passed, every day had been survival. Then, out of nowhere, he saw her, a woman clutching a small child, both barefoot, soaked to the bone, waving frantically near a broken-down sedan. Ethan hit the brakes. She looked terrified. "Please," she begged, bruises coloring her face, arms wrapped protectively around the little boy shaking in her arms. "Can you help us?" Ethan hesitated. He didn't know her. But Max stirred behind him, and Ethan remembered the promise he'd made to his late wife, to always be the kind of man their son could be proud of. "Get in," he said quietly, grabbing the blanket from the back seat. "You're safe now." She wept, not loudly, but in the way someone cries when they haven't felt safe in a long time. Ethan didn't ask questions. Not yet. He just drove, heart pounding, headlights cutting through the storm. Little did he know, the woman in his truck wasn't just running from danger. She was running from something that would soon change his life forever. And when the police came knocking 3 days later, Ethan would find himself at the center of a secret he never saw coming. Ethan settled them into his small living room, offering dry clothes from a box marked "Donate" and heating up leftover stew. The woman sat quietly, holding her son close, flinching at every sound. Max peeked at them from behind his father's leg, his usual shyness replaced by curiosity. "What's your name?" Ethan finally asked gently. She hesitated, lips trembling. "Nora," she whispered. "And this is Jamie. He's 3. Jamie looked up with wide, tired eyes, but didn't say a word. Ethan nodded. "You don't have to tell me anything else tonight," he said. "But you're safe here." Nora looked like she wanted to believe him, but she'd clearly learned not to trust kindness too quickly. That night, Ethan made up a bed for them on the couch and watched them sleep, curled into each other like scared animals. He couldn't stop thinking about the fear in Nora's eyes, the bruises, the broken-down car with out-of-state plates. It was more than just bad luck. They were fleeing something. The next day, Ethan called in sick from work, something he couldn't afford, but did anyway. He took Max to school, then picked up groceries with his last few bills. When he got back, Nora was sitting at the kitchen table, holding a picture. "My husband, he's not going to stop looking for us," she said, eyes filling with tears. "I had to run. I thought no one would help us." Ethan's jaw tightened. "You don't have to run anymore." He meant it, but he had no idea just how close danger already was. And 2 days later, when flashing lights lit up his driveway and uniformed officers stepped out, Ethan braced for answers. But nothing could prepare him for what they were about to reveal. The knock at the door wasn't aggressive, but it was firm. Ethan opened it slowly, shielding the view of the living room where Nora and Jamie sat eating cereal. 2 officers stood outside, one older, calm, the other younger, hand resting too comfortably on his holster. "Mr. Carter?" the senior officer asked. Ethan nodded, pulse racing. "Can I help you?" "We're here about a woman and child who may be staying with you. A Nora Fields and her son, Jamie." Ethan stiffened. "Why?" The officer exchanged a glance with his partner. "We need to talk. May we come in?" Ethan turned to Nora, who had already stood up, her face a drain of all color. Jamie clung to her leg. "Please, Ethan," she whispered, backing away. I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you everything." Ethan raised a calming hand toward her. "No one's here to hurt you. Let's just hear them out." Inside, the officers sat down, removing their hats. The older one leaned forward. "Ms. Fields has been reported missing. Her husband, Andrew Fields, is a wealthy businessman. But 3 days ago, he was arrested after an anonymous tip led authorities to a hidden basement on his estate." Ethan blinked. "What does that have to do with Nora?" The officer continued gently. "The basement had surveillance footage, evidence of years of abuse, and records meticulously kept. But the real shock? Nora wasn't just his wife. She was listed as his property." Nora gasped. "Your tip saved her life," the officer said, eyes locked on Ethan. "The moment you let her in your truck, everything changed." Ethan looked at Nora, who had risked everything for freedom, and Jamie, who had never smiled until yesterday. He hadn't just offered them a ride. He'd offered them a way out. For a moment, the room stood still. Nora covered her mouth, trembling. Jamie hid behind her, eyes wide, confused by the tension in the air. Ethan turned to the officers. So what now? Do they have to go back? The older officer shook his head. No, thanks to you. Andrew Fields is being charged with aggravated assault, unlawful imprisonment, and more. Nora and Jamie are officially under state protection now. The younger officer added, but it's up to Nora where she wants to go next. Ethan looked at her. You can stay here, as long as you need. Nora's lips quivered. She nodded slowly. I don't want to run anymore. Not if I don't have to. That night, the house was quiet again, but it was a different kind of silence. Not lonely. Not heavy. Jamie sat next to Max, stacking toy blocks. Max showed him how to make a tower. For the first time, Jamie smiled. Later, Nora stood in the doorway of the kitchen, watching Ethan pack Max's lunch. You didn't have to help us, she said softly. Ethan smiled without looking up. I know, but I wanted to. You don't know how rare that is. He paused. I think I do. He thought about the nights he cried alone after his wife died. About how kindness had felt like a stranger in his own life. Maybe this was his chance to pass it forward. Just as he closed the lunchbox, he heard a small voice behind him. Thank you, Jamie said. 2 words. His first. Ethan turned, heart pounding. Did he just? Nora covered her mouth, eyes filling. Jamie nodded. Thank you, he whispered again. Sometimes, the most powerful words come from the smallest voices. And Ethan realized he hadn't just saved them. They were saving him too. 3 months passed. The bruises on Nora's face had faded, but the ones inside her took longer. Still, each day brought small victories. Jamie laughing freely, Nora sleeping through the night, Max calling Jamie his little brother. Ethan watched it all unfold like a slow sunrise after years of darkness. He'd gone back to work part-time. Nora had started baking again, something she hadn't done since before her marriage turned into a prison. The house always smelled like fresh bread or cinnamon muffins now. Ethan joked that it was healing them all from the inside out. One morning, as the sun filtered through the kitchen window, Ethan found a note taped to the coffee maker. For everything you've done, without expecting anything in return. Thank you for giving us a home when we had nothing. Nora. He read it 3 times. Then, Jamie ran into the room in mismatched socks, followed by Max, giggling wildly. Nora followed with flour on her nose, and for a moment, Ethan just stood there, watching a family form itself out of broken pieces. Later that week, the local news featured their story, an anonymous tip that had brought down a powerful man. But they didn't name Ethan. He'd asked them not to. He didn't do it for attention. He did it because he knew what it felt like to be unseen. Now, he wasn't unseen anymore. None of them were. And as they sat together that night, 4 hearts once shattered, now slowly mending, Ethan whispered to himself, you don't need a cape to be a hero. Just a heart willing to stop. In a world full of noise, kindness had spoken the loudest. And that made all the difference.